Yay. Well, welcome everyone. This is so exciting. I'm Sally Wright, and I am a leadership and transformation coach and work with people through losses of all types to get to their next chapters and their next steps. And so I am delighted beyond all delights to get to have a conversation with my good friend, Wendy Taylor. And she spends most of her time working as a career coach and also does work with ADHD. But she has really cool background. She's a former executive and management consultant and coaches and is a systems thinker and a builder of people and purpose. And yet, what is most important about her today is not her background. It is the fact that a couple of years ago, her life collapsed and she didn't just bounce back and try to get back to normal because there was no normal again, but she rebuilt her life. And that's what we're going to focus on today. So she's going to walk us through what that looked like, what that was like, and share her own framework. She developed her very own framework in how to rebuild your life after major transformation and major transition. And so she has 4 quadrants: health, wealth, purpose, and joy. And so Wendy is one of my newest, closest friends and someone who has journeyed through caregiving and loss and grief and deep personal transformation. And her story is powerful to me on so many levels, but I know is going to be really resonant for you and it's going to be helpful. So Wendy, thank you so much for being here. I'm so delighted that you're here with us. How are you today?
I am fabulous, and I'm just so excited about today and the stories we're going to tell, the questions you're going to ask, and the opportunity to share things that people don't talk enough about,
Well
and
said. Yep.
and that oftentimes when you have a loss, people want to keep that in one bucket and aren't thinking about all the other things that are going on around that. And so I think this is going to be a really, really interesting conversation. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm excited for today too, and I'm honored that you are spending this time with us. So, are you ready to hop in?
I am.
Yay. Okay. We have 4 questions today. And so the very first question is, why don't you start and just kind of talk us through where everything changed and what happened to bring your life to a complete stop?
Okay. So 2 years and 22 days ago, there's the system thinker there for you. My husband passed away. And he had been sick for several years, but he was beating it. So it was both the end of a long caregiving journey and a total surprise.
Yeah.
We had lived in Nashville for 3 years, but his metastatic cancer diagnosis was within the first 4 months of moving there. And so we didn't really have any friends here. I had 2 friends, 4 if you count their wives. So one of my high school classmates is a longtime songwriter here in Nashville, really amazing human being.
Wow.
He comes back into the story in a minute. And our realtor, who I met through one of Drexel's best friends, who is now one of my best friends, she was one of those people. In fact, she spent the night with me the first night so that I wasn't alone in my house while a very dear friend was flying to be here with me. So, okay, that's a big loss. But that wasn't the whole story.
Yeah.
So not only was that a big loss, and I lived somewhere where I had 2 friends. And by the way, the one Laura spent the night, that first night, it was her wife's 40th birthday.
Wow.
There were like 35, I don't remember exactly how many people, but we'll say a lot of people at their house celebrating the milestone birthday.
Wow.
And at the end of the party, she came and spent the night with me.
That's incredible, Wendy.
It is incredible.
Yeah.
Also, the that high school friend,
Mm-hmm.
the day of the funeral, obviously there weren't a lot of people to come to a burial service at a cemetery when they didn't really know the man, but I had like 10 people show up.
Wow.
But he showed up at my house after the funeral and stepped in like a brother and answered the door to every person as they came to be with me, to eat food that my neighbors provided after the funeral. And I've told that story to so many people in the songwriting world here. And every time I tell that story, they're always like, I knew he was a good man. I didn't know how good. Thank you for telling me that story. So, okay, so we had the friend thing, we had the loss.
Yeah.
But those weren't the only challenges I had. So I also, I'd actually been given 3 to 5 years to live 2 years before, or 5 years before. I had 3 diseases caused by mold in the house I lived in, and I rented in San Francisco.
Wow.
And one of them, if you don't figure out what caused it and get away from it and get lucky, you have 3 to 5 years to live without a lung transplant.
Wow.
So you figure it out and then you get out of the house that caused it. You still don't know if you're going to get lucky.
Yeah. Ooh.
So I was the breadwinner. So I worked from bed during the worst of that. So I lost a lot of mobility. When he died, I still couldn't climb stairs without a death grip on a railing. I couldn't pull trash cans up our driveway because it had a hill and I couldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would wake up in the middle of the night, unable to breathe. And I had 2 other very painful mold-caused diseases. So obviously that's huge.
Super huge. So just to recap for everyone.
Yes.
So you moved to Nashville, had no community yet. Your husband was diagnosed with metastatic cancer 4 months after that. You moved to Nashville having 3 mold-causing diseases, and you were severely debilitated because of it. So that's where we are at the moment. Okay.
Yes. And we have one more.
One more. Okay.
The other thing was I had fighting cancer holistically is expensive. And I wasn't working full time. In fact, at one point, I was driving 400 miles a week in agonizing pain to take him to treatments.
Wow.
But I had 2 months living expenses in the bank when he died.
That's not a long runway, Wendy.
No. Yeah. So it was quite a cocktail.
That is quite the cocktail. So the next question is going to get to the process of what rebuilding actually looks like. But I want to have sort of a question right in the middle of that is, do you remember sort of what it was like to be in the middle of that swirling storm?
Yeah.
Could you give us just a little glimpse of that?
Yes. So I was functioning in fog. People, like a neighbor just told me the other day, I was just amazed at how composed you were. Well, I was always composed. That actually was part of the problem. That expressing emotion is not something I was very good at. So what I remember from that time was this sense of moving in fog and moving very slowly. And 2 things came to me before I came up with the whole quadrant process. One was I need to learn how to express emotion because I know one of the reasons I'd had, yes, the mold caused a lot of things, but a lot of my health challenges were probably exacerbated by the fact that I have a history of not expressing emotion. And so I knew that this was big emotion and I better learn how to do this. And then I came up with a word. And the word was grace.
Ooh.
And so I would just say that to myself over and over and over again to to pay attention to the emotions, to find opportunities to cry, not something I was very good at, to like figure out what does my body need? What do I need? Grace.
Yeah.
Like, and it was everything from practical things like, how am I going to get the trash out to the street?
I love
To
how you're
other things.
expanding grace, because mostly when we hear grace, it's sort of in this really religious-y, churchy
Yes.
context. And I hear you taking the word grace and just opening it up and just saying this is about grace and space for yourself and
Yes.
for your own well-being.
Yes. And so that it really, I almost said that when I shared the word. I'm glad you called that out because, you know, you hear the word grace. If you've spent time in the Christian church, you think amazing grace, right? You know, that's what you think. I'm a church musician. Of course, that's what I think. But I meant that in a very broad way. And it was just like the theme, the word, the reminder, whether it was expressing emotion, whether it was figuring out what does managing my life look like now. And for a variety of reasons, I always was the manager of our life. I was the breadwinner. I managed our home. I was a healing presence in his life in very many, many ways. But it was like, okay, it's only you. What do you need? What do you want? What are you going to do? And yes, I had to figure out how to pay the bills. But other than that, there were no have tos. It was all about giving myself grace.
Yeah, I hear the opportunities in that. Like, yeah, the paying of the bills, yeah, the things that must happen, but also the sense of opportunity in that.
Yeah.
So, jumping from there, what did this process, other than this mantra of grace, what did
Mm-hmm.
this process of rebuilding really look like?
So my management consulting hat came back pretty quickly, given that I was in a grief fog, and and the thing that I lost was names.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I couldn't get names. That was where the grief affected the brain. But um, I wanted a way to think about because I had so many things to do. I had to get healthier.
Mhm.
I had to build financial health. I use the word wealth for that. Um, the work that I do is all aligned with my purpose. And then I needed to do things that brought me joy. Now, I don't have any children. I wanted them very much. But that didn't happen in my life. So I don't have a family bucket. Spending time with my mother is joy. Talking to my sister is joy. Looking at my brother and sister-in-law's Instagram posts is joy. So that's just in there. But so basically, this was about thinking about time and money
Mm.
and how I spend either one of them. And if it didn't fit in those 4 buckets, it didn't happen.
Now, remind us what these 4 buckets were.
Yes. So it's health, wealth, joy, purpose. And so I pictured it in 4 boxes, the way we would diagram things in management consulting. It can be buckets, it could be baskets, it could be whatever container works for you.
We love a good metaphor.
But yes, but for me, it was quadrants
Yeah.
because it was like that part of my brain was working in that very early grief. I was like, oh, management consulting, quadrants, you know, okay. But the powerful thing was those 4 categories and then making decisions based on that. Everything from processes in my household and where the trash cans live
Yeah.
to
So
how I
walk us
grocery shop.
through how those decisions, like, we'll just use the one you just had. Where do the trash cans live?
Yeah.
What was the actual process between recognizing what the question was and working through your quadrants that you had laid out?
So, the trash has to get out and the recycling has to get out to the street.
Yes.
And in August 2023, well, actually September 1st or 2nd, my last friend, I was not alone for a month. I had 2 boy best friends from growing up, each spend a week with me. I had my girl best friend from growing up. I had my sister there for the funeral. She was amazing. Then she came up with things that the boy best friends could help me with. Um, I I had the best friend who got on a plane 12 hours after he died. And so I had all these amazing people around me. And then they left. And um, your trash cans in Nashville are supposed to be like on the side of your property or the back of your property.
Oh,
And I live on a hill. So the back of my house is 1 story. There's an extra story in the back of my house that's above ground compared to the front of the house. So that's a big steep hill. And it rains here and it snows here and we get ice here. So like there was no way I was pulling the darn trash cans up the hill. Plus, that also meant I had to take the trash down a flight of stairs.
oh,
And stairs were not my friends yet. So I don't do, as my sister put it, you don't do clutter. It makes you anxious. So I realized, one person isn't going to create as much trash. So I had a neater, prettier, more organized way to handle the trash. And then it's like, wait a minute. I have bushes that hide my front porch. I'm putting 1 trash can and 1 recycling bin on the front porch. And then all I have to do is drag it down the front walk.
wow.
And so nobody can see it because that's the ordinance, is that they're not supposed to be visible from the street.
Right.
But I don't have to go downstairs to put the trash in there. And it's a much shorter haul.
Mm-hmm.
And even in the early days when I was still really weak, I could do that. Even if it was snowy, even if it was icy, even if it was raining. And I spent less time dealing with it. And yeah, they're sitting on the front porch, but I don't hang out on the front porch anyway. I have a back deck. So like it doesn't matter. And it's not visible. I'm not harming anyone. I'm not downplaying the value of the properties or any of those things, but I spend less time. It didn't hurt me. It didn't risk me falling
Right.
by myself on the driveway. All those things.
Yeah, it's fascinating how seemingly unimportant tasks that during a major life transition, whichever transition that ends up being, whether it's the loss of a loved one, a divorce, a job change, a career change, any of these, but some of these really minor, like no one gives it a second thought where the trash cans go, become major stumbling blocks. Like you have to really think about and process what to do now.
Or you have to, or you can. Some people might have just been like, well, I have to. In fact, my first thing was to try and get a neighbor's kid to do it for me. That was my first thing.
Wendy.
Yeah, that was my first thing. And that didn't work out real well. So, and my neighborhood, everybody's either older than me or has really little babies. So there was like only 1 set of teenagers and, it just wasn't a fit. So, yeah, I had to figure out, I had to do it.
So how did sort of this health, wealth, joy, purpose, talk us through a little bit more about how you thought through those quadrants and how they applied to some of these questions that came up?
Yeah. So here's an example of one that I use more often than the trash cans, but the trash cans are so great because it's so basic. So if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, you know that I'm a serious home chef and I post photos of basically every single dinner I make, and usually Sunday after singing in church. So like there are pictures. Right now I'm working on meditation and then doing happy hour on the deck. So those pictures get posted too. So also I have an amazing nutritionist who has been so helpful for 13 years and was really there for me during the cancer caregiving journey as well. And so I have rules by which I eat, and I prioritize spending money on the quality of the food that I eat. And So what shocks people to find out is I don't set foot in grocery stores.
I didn't know this, Wendy. Say
Yeah.
more.
And ironically, Drexel and I loved going grocery shopping. We had fun doing that. But anyway, and I'm not avoiding the grocery stores because they make me sad because I miss my husband because, like, we'd only been here a few years anyway. So our grocery store BFFs are all back in San Francisco. But so I started thinking about the whole time thing. And then I realized, and plus in the beginning, hauling the groceries out of the car as opposed to just getting them off the front porch, that played in a little bit, but I got healthier pretty quickly. It was really about, this is not a good use of my time. And
Wow.
Amazon Fresh delivers where I live, and Whole Foods delivers where I live, and you pay Amazon $9 a month, and you don't pay for grocery delivery. So I'm not driving my car, which is kind of literally held together with duct tape. So driving it less is good. I'm not paying for gas. I only pay for gas when I go to sing or hear people sing or important gatherings of people that are part of my work. So, and I don't spend the time in the grocery store. It takes me 5-10 minutes at this point. What I need, it's ordered, it comes. And so I'm not spending that time. And most of the time they're really amazing about, not giving me non-organic or not giving me the frozen seafood with the STPP in it that my body thinks is poison, all of those Wendy special things.
Right.
And it shows up on my doorstep and I bring it in and I put it away. It takes me less than half an hour to do that. And
Wow.
so I'm not spending time on something that, even though the food is important, both for my joy, my creativity, and for my health.
Right.
But the grocery store itself is not helping my health or my joy.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I love how you took the seemingly, again, mundane task of grocery shopping or getting groceries,
yeah,
getting food in the house,
yes,
and really put it through the quadrant of saying, what do I need for my health? What is this? How does this apply to my wealth? What are the values at play here? Where is the joy? Is the joy in walking around the grocery store, or is the joy in creating the dishes?
mm-hmm.
And then even your purpose, is my purpose to grocery shop, or is my purpose to create and then to actually minimize my time in other places so I can focus on building this business?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I inspire people with my food posts, just like I inspire people with the grief posts. And I host a monthly dinner salon that is potluck. Thank God for Southerners. They like to bring food. You don't have to do all the cooking, and they cook. Love that. But the food I need for that. And because those salons are part of my purpose and part of my joy, I'm building a community. But I don't need to go to the grocery store to do that.
Yeah. Man, I think even if you're not dealing with a major life transition or a major loss, even just taking a task, like a weekly task, and doing this process with it, could be immensely clarifying.
I do it with entrepreneur clients and career long game clients all the time. Like,
Oh my
what are we spending our time on? Especially if they're my ADHD people, but even if they're not, I don't have ADHD. But let's actually rethink all of it. I work with a couple and they've got 2 little kids. How are we spending our time? What's the most important thing for them to turn this into the business that is 6-figure breadwinning and has them working with people they actually enjoy working with and has time for their children?
Yeah.
Because otherwise they could go back to making healthy 6 figures and work for somebody else and know where the
Right.
paycheck's coming from.
Right. Oh, okay. This is such a helpful conversation that we're having, Wendy. I just cannot thank you enough. But now on to question 3.
Okay.
So you had this whole process that just sort of came to you because
Mhm.
you were a really great management consultant. couldn't remember names, but you could remember quadrants. And
Yes.
so you built your quadrants, which is amazing, of health, wealth, joy, and purpose. So what did you learn about yourself in this process? Because it wasn't a short process. This wasn't just come up with the quadrant and then bam, life is rebuilt. This has been over many years.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're 2 years plus. So I use this quadrants to create Wendy 3.0. So Wendy 1.0 is Wendy before she met Drexel. I met him when I was 36. I just come out of a fintech startup where I helped scale from employee 23 to 500. They had $100 million exit. So their founders and investors made a whole lot of money. I got an upright piano and a trip to France with my portion of the company, and I'm grateful for both of those experiences. I have beautiful photos I took in France on my walls. Anyway, so Wendy 2.0 was with Drexel, and so now there was Wendy 3.0. So one of the things like that was kind of not so happy, but I'm going to be honest about this, is because I was building from zero, it felt like, in August of 23. It's like when I met him, I was hot stuff. And I don't mean that physically, although actually I probably was the most hot stuff I had ever been at that point. But that wasn't really what I meant by hot stuff. What I meant was I just had this massive career win. Massive career win. I'm like, how did that person end up in this situation financially? And so that was the only kind of not so nice talking that was going on in my head. Everything else was very grace focused, but then I used that to think about, so who was I before him? And what of that do I want either back, or if it didn't really change when I was with him, did I want to continue? What from Wendy 1.0 did I want back? And I wanted to continue in Wendy 3.0. Then what about Wendy 2.0 with him? What of that do I want? And then what has never existed? So like, here's an example. My first word was dress.
Like
Daddy,
as a baby,
mommy,
as a
dress.
child? Okay.
As a child, my first word was dress. As a baby, I'd wake up from my nap and I'd demand a dress, actually. Yes. So I was kind of a formal dresser, which worked really well for him. So it made him like really like, oh yeah, she's my girl. And then because of all the health issues, dresses are cool. They don't have waistbands. And if your weight is fluctuating, because I put on a lot of weight during all the things I was dealing with the mold and some of the stressors of living with someone with autism, not having a waistband is valuable. So I now own blue jeans. I wear them in public.
It's amazing.
Yes. I come from, here's another example. I come from a blue collar family, and not my father, but my mother's family. So my uncle was a plumber. My grandfather worked the assembly line at Link Belt, which makes construction equipment. By the way, both of them were artists, either in retirement or as a side thing. My uncle did oil paintings. My grandfather made stained glass ornaments. But so some of my favorite people that I've met in the last year are people who have their own blue collar businesses who are songwriters. So all these different, like, it's like building up puzzle pieces of like putting together these different parts of me. I lost 40 pounds in the last 2 years because I'm not living in a constant state of cortisol. It's amazing how that works. So I needed some new clothes. I did buy some dresses, but they're not my like sheath dress businessy thing. They're like bohemian flowy things. And
Yeah.
so just like everything, like just that stuff, just like playing with what do I want now? Who are my people? What people do I want to serve? It's still career design for your whole life. I want to know, and you know this because we may be business besties, but I end messages to you about your family.
100%.
So that's why I
Real
work with
story,
people.
she sent me one last night and it made me cry. Like I was just full on like in bed, like crying, and I was like, I'll have to text her back tomorrow. Real story, yeah.
So I do make people cry, but it's for good reasons. But so I'm all about all that holistic stuff, but like doing that for myself is just kind of an interesting thing. And like
Yeah.
what does all this look like, and who are my people? What people do I feel good when I'm around them? What people do I want to help? I'm still helping them with their business or careers in a way that is good for their health and their family or their marriage, whatever combination of that they have, or their art or their music, for those of us who don't have a marriage or children.
Right.
And in Nashville, actually, it's all of those because we live whole lives in Nashville. It's one of the reasons I love Nashville, because like the city practices what I do with people. But there are a lot of people I could help with that.
Right.
But I'm paying attention to who are the people that energetically I want to be even on Zoom with.
Right.
And so like that's actually literally I made up energetic resilience as a concept yesterday on a call. And I'm now going to start writing about that. And so I'm still doing this stuff. I'm just taking it next level now.
Well, and I think some of the things that you're talking about, I think apply, of course, in business and of course in our careers, but also apply in our lives. And one of them is just paying attention to who you want to be around, who
Yes.
excites you, who builds you up,
Yes.
who sort of puts the goodness in you.
Yes.
And then to figure out, I want more of that and
Yes.
less of what takes away from me.
Yes. Yes.
I
Those
mean,
are, I literally
that's
said that to a client yesterday. Do you like those people? That was a particular target. And she said, actually, no. Like, why don't we find people who know they have the problem you can solve, who have the money to pay for it, that you like working with?
yeah.
Oh, wow. I can do that. Yeah.
Well, and that's some of the transition that my own work is going through right now,
Yes.
was I
Sure
realized
is.
I know, which I realized I love working with people in some of the hardest moments of their life, and grief is one of them. Except grief isn't just when someone dies. I've had so many people come to me and say, "Do you work with people who are going through a divorce?" And I go, "Yeah." "Do you work with people who are going through a career change?" "Yeah." "I'm moving jobs. Would you work with me?" Yeah, and I realized it's not about grief for grief's sake. It's about that transition, that
Yes.
transformation from just realizing that the page of the book is turning, a
Yeah.
new chapter is starting, all of these beautiful metaphors.
Oh, yeah.
And so like just recently I've been putting all of that together and saying, I need to broaden, and this is what it needs to look like.
It's so
Uh,
exciting. People need so much support on all of that. And I love the divorce component. I love the job change or business loss component. Uh, I had
yeah.
early in my life a wedding called off.
Oh.
I thought that was going to be the worst thing that ever happened to me. No, but but
But it was
huge.
horrible at the time. It
It
was life
was, and I
changing.
transformed
Yeah.
my life coming out of that. I found a calling coming out of that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So for someone who is listening or who comes upon this, who finds themselves in the middle of their own hard season, however they're defining it, what do you really want them to know about your story?
Um, breathe.
Mm,
As someone who's been unable to breathe,
mhm.
don't take that for granted. Breathe, because when we're in that bad place, even if you have completely healthy lungs, the breathing thing you need to remember to do.
Yeah.
Find your version of the word grace. For a client of mine about to move overseas for work, it might be adventure and might be growth. But so find that. Just find your word that kind of brings you back to, what do I need to do for myself? Even if you have responsibilities as a leader at work, as an adult in a family, as a caregiver for elderly parents, whatever those responsibilities are, the oxygen mask first thing still applies. What is your word that is going to remind you to listen to yourself?
Oh, I know so many leaders and so many just humans who desperately need to hear that, and don't just need to hear it, but need to like let it soak into their body.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I
Breathe that
love
word
it.
in.
Yeah, I love that your word was grace, and I work with people all the time, and we sort of come up with the metaphor for the moment. What
Mhm.
is that image? What is that? Sometimes it's growth, growth of a tree, but that is so powerful, and it's really amazing that you were able to do that, Wendy, in the crucible of all that you were navigating through. And I attribute that to your amazing mind, but also I know that you're a believer in sort of your faith, and just coming back to these things that really ground you, music
Yes.
and the people you love and who love you. And so, anything else you want to add before we close?
I just want to say, if you're not already in my world and you're listening to this and you're like, I could use some help figuring out my version of Four Quadrants, reach out to me, because that is totally something I'm doing with people in my work now. And I'll be happy to talk with you.
And Wendy is powerful and kind and gentle. It's a really beautiful combination. And so, if you know me and you're a friend of mine on Facebook or on YouTube, just send me a message or reply, just let me know. I want to connect with Wendy, and I am happy to get you connected to her. She is, like I said, she's a business bestie. She's one of my newest, closest friends, and just always a joy to get to be in conversation with. And so today we've talked about transformation through loss. Maybe we should have called it transformation in spite of loss. Like, you just have to do it. Like, you just have to keep going. But rebuilding life with a purpose. And Wendy, I'm so grateful for this time with you, and just so honored that you shared your story with us. It's a powerful story. And so, with that, I want to say thank you, and I'll see y'all next time. Okay, bye.